Imagine a quiet summer in 1971, the kind where the air hangs heavy and the sun beats down mercilessly on a sleepy little village in England called Bovingdon. Picture it. Quaint cottages, winding lanes, a place where nothing much happens. Until it does. That July, something sinister crept into the lives of the folks working at John Hadland, a small lab tucked away in this peaceful corner of Hertfordshire. People started dropping like flies, and not in the usual way. We're talking violent vomiting, hair falling out in clumps, limbs going numb, and some slipping into comas they'd never wake from. It was the kind of nightmare that keeps you up at night, wondering, what the hell is going on here? And more importantly, who or what was behind it? I'm taking you back to that sweltering season because that's where this story begins, with shadow moving unnoticed among the living. At first, it was just whispers, rumors of mysterious illness plaguing the lab workers. Doctors scratched their heads, baffled as patients rolled in, one after another, with symptoms that didn't add up. Was it a virus? Poison water? Some freak industrial accident? The fear spread faster than the sickness itself, turning Bovingdon into a village on edge, everyone waiting for their turn to fall. And fall they did, some into graves. By the time the truth clawed its way to the surface, it was worse than anyone could have imagined. The culprit wasn't a leak or a plague. It was a person, someone they knew, someone they trusted, turning friends, colleagues, even family into guinea pigs for his twisted experiments. This wasn't just a tragedy. It was a scandal that shook England to its core. When the dust settled, a government minister had to stand up, head bowed, and apologize to the nation. Laws were rewritten, all because of one man's quiet, calculated reign of terror. His name was Graham Young, and he didn't just kill, he reveled in it, treating human lives like lab rats in a cage. But here's the kicker. How did a monster like him hide in plain sight? What kind of mind brews poison in the shadows while sipping tea with his victims? That's what we're going to unravel, step by chilling step, starting with the day the nightmare broke wide open at John Hadland. Stick with me, because this tale only gets darker and stranger from here. So, let's rewind to that fateful summer of 1971, when Bovingdon's illusion of peace shattered like glass. If you're picturing this little English village, think pastoral charm meets faded glory. Just beyond its edges sat the ruins of an old Royal Air Force base, a hulking skeleton from World War II. Back in the day, it roared with bombers and fighter escorts, a linchpin in Britain's war machine. By the 70s, though, it was quiet. Its runways cracked, its hangars empty, a perfect set for Hollywood war flicks. Nearby, the John Hadland lab buzzed with a different kind of energy, crafting infrared lenses for military gear, medical tech, and industrial gizmos. It was a place of order, of science, until it turned into a slaughterhouse. The first crack appeared on July 7th, when Bob Eagle, the 59-year-old warehouse manager, dropped dead. Bob was a rock at Hadland, dependable, gruff, the kind of guy who kept things running smooth. A few days before, he'd griped about stomach pains and diarrhea. Nothing wild, just enough to call in sick. He rested up, came back looking better, and then, bam, it hit him hard. Crippling back pain, limbs locking up, total paralysis. They hauled him to St. Albans Hospital, straight into ICU. The docs threw out a theory, Guillain-Barré syndrome, a rare nerve condition. But why? No one knew. For 10 brutal days, Bob clung to life, drowning in agony, until he was gone. A sad loss, sure, but it didn't scream serial killer yet. Then the dominoes started tumbling. A month earlier, people had noticed weird stuff, nausea, fatigue, writing it off as bad food or a stomach bug. Post Bob, though, it escalated fast. His assistant got sick, quit, and vanished. Then it spread. Vomiting so bad you'd think their guts were turning inside out, hair falling out like they'd been irradiated, bodies shutting down. David Tilson, a young worker, ended up in a hospital. Legs dead, chest tight, hair and skin peeling off in chunks. He couldn't breathe right, couldn't function. Jay, Robart, another guy, took it worse. His body failed so hard, he couldn't face his girlfriend, and suicide crossed his mind. By October 8th, the place was a war zone. Dozens down, some circling the drain. Enter Fred Biggs, 56, a part-time counselor and company vet. On Halloween, he felt the first signs, chest squeezing like a vice, legs heavy as concrete. It got ugly quick. They bounced in between hospitals, finally landing at London's National Hospital for Nervous Diseases. His nervous system was toast. He couldn't talk, barely breathe, his skin flaking off as he suffered. Docs were stumped. On November 19th, after 20 days of pure hell, Fred checked out victim number 2. Nearly 70 others were reeling. Hadland was a ghost town, gripped by terror. They dubbed it the Invisible Curse, a faceless killer stalking the halls. People prayed, but it felt pointless. The brass of Hadland couldn't sit on their hands anymore. They launched a probe. The lab worked with thallium bromide and iodide, nasty chemicals for those lenses. Thallium's a heavy metal, a slow poison that fries nerves, strips hair, and locks up limbs. Textbook match for what they were seeing. A leak, maybe? Dr. Ian Anderson, the company physician, ran the checks. Seals tight. No spills. At a 10-staff meeting, he shut it down. It's not thallium poisoning. End of story, or so he thought. Then a voice sliced through the room, calm but cutting. Graham Young, a scrawny warehouse assistant nobody clocked, stood up. How can you rule out thallium so easily? He snapped, launching into a breakdown of symptoms and toxicology, so spot on it was eerie. This wasn't some grunt mouthing off. He sounded like a damn professor. Anderson went rigid. Who was this kid? The air shifted. Eyes darted. Graham wasn't just loud. He was precise, like he'd lived inside this nightmare. Dig deeper, and it gets creepier. Graham started at Hadland on May 10th, 1971, right when the first whispers of sickness popped up. After Bob croaked, Graham slid into his job. Warehouse manager, fast-tracked during probation. He handled stock, sure, but also the tea trolley. Picture it, a little cart rolling out free tea, coffee, biscuits. A British edition. Graham poured the drinks, passed them around. Every worker sipped from his hands. Coincidence? Maybe, but the pieces were stacking up. Let's peel back the mask a bit. Graham wasn't loud or flashy. He was a ghost, blending into the background. But that outburst? It was a flare, a glimpse of something rotten underneath. He didn't just know thallium. He loved it, like a kid with a sick obsession. And that tea trolley? It wasn't just a perk. It was a weapon, if you knew how to use it. The cops would figure that out soon enough. But first, we've got to rewind further, to a grim little house in North London where this monster was born. Graham's story doesn't start Hadland. It starts way earlier, in a cradle soaked with loss and a mind wired for chaos. Now that we've seen the carnage at John Hadland, let's step back, way back, to figure out how Graham Young went from a nobody to a name that still chills spines. Picture North London, 1947, a gray post-war sprawl. On September 7th, Graham Frederick Young came into the world in Neasden, a working-class pocket of grit and grind. His mom was pregnant with him when TB sank its claws into her lungs. 3 months after he was born, she was dead. His dad, gutted and drowning in grief, couldn't handle a newborn and a toddler. So he split the kids up. Graham went to his aunt, his sister to the grandparents. 2 years later, Dad remarried, pulled the family back together under one roof in St. Albans, hoping for a fresh start. Spoiler, it didn't work out that way. Graham didn't want to leave his aunt. He'd bonded there, felt safe. But kids don't get a vote, so he was dragged into this new setup with a stepmom he didn't choose. On the surface, it's a sad but normal story. Loss, upheaval, a blended family trying to gel. Dig deeper, though, and you see the cracks forming early. Graham wasn't your average troubled kid throwing tantrums. He was quiet, too quiet, with a mind that latched onto things most boys his age wouldn't touch. By the time he hit double digits, he was hooked on macabre, true crime docs, forensic books, anything dark. Then there was the Hitler thing. Yeah, you heard that right. He idolized a guy, wore Nazi badges, spouted ideology like a mini propagandist. Weird for a preteen, right? But it gets worse. At 13, Graham's brain was a furnace. School couldn't keep up with him. He devoured chemistry texts, taught himself toxicology, outpaced his peers by miles. His dad, proud of the smart kid, bought him a chemistry set. Big mistake. Most boys might mix baking soda and vinegar for fun. Graham brewed poisons. He didn't stop at theory. He built bombs, too. One exploded, rattling the neighborhood, shattering windows. Neighbors grumbled, but his folks brushed it off as boys being boys. Except this boy was different. He'd trap local kids for creepy rituals, even sacrifice stray cats. Enough that the area's feline population took a nosedive. His stepmom and dad started feeling uneasy, but they didn't connect the dots yet. Then, in 1961, the dots connected themselves. His stepmom got sick, vomiting, diarrhea, the works. At first, they thought it was a bug, but it wouldn't quit. She wasted away, frail and fading. His dad followed, same symptoms, weaker by the day. Then his sister and brother joined the sick list. The house turned into a plague zone, and Dad's radar finally pinged. Graham wasn't just odd, he was dangerous. The kid was obsessed with poison, idolized a Victorian killer named Dr. Harvey Crippen, and bragged about magic powers. Dad banned him from a chemistry set, but it was like locking the barn after the horse bolted. November 1961, Graham's sister got diagnosed with belladonna poisoning, deadly nightshade. She pulled through, barely. Then, April 21st, 1962, his stepmom collapsed in the garden after breakfast, writhing until she died that night. Docs blamed a car crash from years back. A.W., she'd crush her spine, they said. Fair enough, but the real story's uglier. Graham's fingerprints were all over it, figuratively and maybe literally. They cremated her fast, at a suggestion, no autopsy. Suspicious? You bet. A bit later, Dad landed in the hospital, puking his guts out, poisoned with antimony, a metal so toxic a higher dose would have killed him. He noticed it always hit hardest after Sunday drinks with Graham. The penny dropped. His son was a psycho. Enter Edwin Gray, a chemistry teacher with a sharp eye. One of his students, William, kept getting sick, vomiting, no cure. Edwin clocked Graham, William's pal, acting off, preaching Nazi rants, hoarding weird vials. One day, he spotted bottles on Graham's desk, antimony, arsenic, thallium, enough to wipe out a classroom. Edwin called the cops. They set a trap, a fake job interview. Graham, still a cocky 14-year-old, bragged about his poison stash, thinking he was impressing some bigwig. When they flipped the script and search and bam, antimony in his pocket. Game over. May 23rd, 1962, they hauled him in interrogation. He was ice cold, smirking as he admitted poisoning his family and William. He led cops to his stashes. Vials hidden around the house. An abandoned shed where he cooked up explosives. How'd he get the stuff? He conned local chemists, posing as a 17-year-old researcher. They ate it up, handed over enough toxins to kill 300 people. He loved the power. Said his family were perfect lab rats. No remorse, just glee. June 5th, 1962, Broadmoor Hospital locked him up. Britain's youngest inmate there since 1885, diagnosed with schizophrenia and delusions. The experts said it plain. He was a walking time bomb. If he ever got out, he'd do it again. And guess what? He did. But before we get to his encore, let's linger on that mind. Graham wasn't broken by loss or rage. He was wired wrong from the jump, a predator in a kid's body, turning love into a petri dish. Hadland was just a sequel. This was where he cut his teeth. So, Graham's locked away at Broadmoor, a fortress for Britain's most unhinged minds. At 14, he's a baby among hardened psychos, but don't let that fool you. He's no victim. The staff see a sad kid, not a viper. So he gets slack, access to books, med journals, toxicology tomes. He soaks it up like a sponge. Weeks in, another inmate drops dead, cyanide poisoning. Graham's the prime suspect. He bragged about distilling it from laurel leaves. No proof, though, so they call it suicide. Then more prisoners at sick, cleaner in their drinks, gut-wrenching pain. Still, no smoking gun. He's untouchable, a ghost in the system. By 1965, he's 18 and petitioned for release. His dad shuts it down hard. He's a monster. No one will take him. Denied. Graham plays nice after that. Quiet, obedient, a model patient. Fast forward to 1970. Dr. Edgar Wynn, a Broadmoor shrink, writes the Home Office, swearing Graham's cured. No more poison fetish. No threat. June 1971, the Home Secretary signs off. Graham's free at 23. The night before release, he drops a bombshell to a nurse. Once I'm out, I'll kill one of you every year. It's logged. Ignored. A taunt that'll haunt them later. He walks out with a clean slate. Identity shielded. Record wiped. Lands a gig at John Hadland as a warehouse assistant. His bosses? Clueless about the devil they've hired. He's sharp, diligent, a star hire. Then the sickness starts. Same old playbook. By November 20th, 1971, the body count's climbing and the cops circle back. They nab him visiting his aunt and uncle. He denies everything, smirking, until the evidence piles up. Who'd I kill? He taunts, daring them to prove it. They raid his place. A poison arsenal. Thallium, antimony, enough for hundreds of deaths. Nazi posters plaster the walls. Hitler's mug staring down. Then the jackpot. A diary meticulous as a scientist's log. Dates, doses, initials. F for Fred Biggs, D for David Tilson. Plus blow-by-blow accounts of their suffering. He'd spiked their tea, watched them choke, and loved every second. They're not people, he says in the hot seat, just lab rats. He even brags about his stepmom's perfect murder. Doc spots the call, and he got away clean. June 19th, 1972. Trial hits St. Albans Crown Court. 2 murders, 2 attempts, 8 poisonings, 75 witnesses, a mountain of testimony. The judge reads the diary aloud, a horror show in ink. Autopsies seal it. Fred's organs swimming in thallium. Bob's ashes laced with 9 milligrams of stuff. First time Cremains nailed a killer in court. Graham smug. Proud, he pioneered thallium in Britain. His lawyer says it's all a game. He's testing the system, seeing if smarts can beat justice. Nope. June 29th. After 98 minutes, the jury hands down life, no parole. The fallout's massive. Public outrage torches Broadmoor. How'd they loose this freak? The Home Secretary grovels, vows tighter reins. Dual MD sign-off for psych releases. Stricter post-discharge watch. The Poison Act gets a facelift too. Toxic stuff's locked down hard. Graham's a cautionary tale. A system failure with blood on its hands. In prison, he's a celebrity of sorts. Chats up the press, 0 regrets. It's all empty inside. His sister visits, begs him to connect. Pointless, he sneers, my heart's stone. Then he buddies up with Ian Brady, the Moor's murderer. 2 peas in a pod, bonding over Hitler and control. Brady calls him truly hollow, a man alive only to dominate fate. August 1st, 1990. Graham's found dead in his cell, a month shy of 43. Official word, heart attack. But he'd never shown heart trouble, self-poisoning, or a hit. No one sure. They cremate him, scatter the ashes at sea. Before dying, he'd beg for a wax figure at Madame Tussauds crime gallery. Wish granted. His cold face glowers beside Britain's worst. Hadland was his encore, but the encore never ends. It's a legacy of dread, a mind that turned freedom into a kill zone. Graham Young's story doesn't fade with his ashes. It lingers, a stain on history. After that 1972 verdict, England reeled. How could Broadmoor, a supposed iron cage, let the snake slither out? The Home Secretary's apology wasn't just words. Policy shifted fast. Psych patients needed 2 doctors' nods to walk free, and post-release tracking tightened. The Poison Act got teeth, clamping down on lethal chemicals. Graham's spree forced a reckoning. Systems fail when they underestimate evil. His shadow stretched beyond prison bars. In 1995, the young poisoner's handbook hit screens, a dark flick tracing his life, half genius, half ghoul. Docs and books piled up after, dissecting the teacup poisoner. He hated that nickname. Too basic, he'd scoff. I'm the world's master poisoner. Arrogant to the end. His influence even jumped borders. In 2005, a Japanese girl poisoned her mom, echoing Graham's cold precision. His ideas, like his toxins, seeped into twisted minds. Inside, he was a paradox. To the press, he shrugged off guilt. Regrets fake. I feel nothing. His sister, braving the stigma, visited, urging him to find friends. Waste of time, he shot back, I'm dead inside. Yet he clicked with Ian Brady, two killers, Hitler fanboys, feeding off each other's darkness. Brady pegged him right. Graham lived to bend lives to his will. That was his oxygen. Then, August 1990, he's gone, dead in his cell at 42. Heart attack, they say. But skeptics whisper poison, or payback. No proof either way. His body's burned, ashes dumped at sea, for his wish to vanish. But he'd angled for immortality, a waxed doppelganger in Madame Tussauds Chamber Horrors. They gave it to him, planting him among Britain's rogues gallery. In a sick way, he won, etched into infamy. The real kicker? Graham's not a one-off. He's a warning. Picture a start. Mom dead, dad checked out, shuffle between homes. Trauma's there, sure, but it's no excuse he wasn't lashing out. He was hunting. School failed him. 2, his brain outran the system, and no one steered it right. Society slept on the signs. Nazi fixation, cat killings, bomb-making. By the time they woke up, bodies were cold. If they caught him sooner, locked him tighter, maybe Bob, Fred, and the rest would have lived. What's scarier is the what if. How many Grahams are out there, quiet, plotting? Every broken family, every ignored oddball. Could they snap the same way? His case screams vigilance. Watch the outliers, mend the cracks. Loss warped him, but apathy let him bloom. Hadland, Broadmoor, the laws, they all learn late. Too late for some. So what's the takeaway? Graham Young wasn't just a killer. He was a mirror, a kid turned predator, a system turned blind. His story's a gut punch. Evil doesn't always roar. Sometimes it pours you tea. And when it does, you better see it coming or pay the price.